Hello and welcome back to Decode ISC. In part 3 of our Java series, we are going to be discussing variables and typecasting. Now, what are variables? Variable is an identifier that holds values that I use in a Java program. For example, we are going to store the value of 5, right? I need to store the value of 5. So I need an identifier to hold that value 5. So I say A equals 5. Right? Now, what this statement does is it creates a memory space. We name that memory space as A, and it stores in that memory space the value of 5. So this A over here is what I call as a variable, and this value 5 is going to be my literal. Now, variables are subject to rules for naming identifiers. Now, if you remember, we had a couple of rules for naming identifiers that they start with a letter, underscore, or a dollar sign, and that they're case sensitive. All those rules are applicable for variables as well. Now, let's now learn the format for how to declare and initialize a variable. So it's like this: data type, variable name equals value, semicolon. This is your format for declaring and initializing a variable. So if I'm going to take this example here, I'm going to write data type int. Okay, it could be any data type that you want. I'm going to use int now. Variable name, again, anything you want. A, value 5, semicolon. And this is how I declare and I initialize a variable. Another example could be double. Variable name could be Madhu equals 27, right? Another example, string, hyphen equals good, right? These are all examples of how of different variables that I can create. Now we're moving on to expressions. Now expressions are combinations of operators and operands. Now what that means is, say I have an expression A into B minus C. This is an expression, right? We have operators. These are the operators. And we also have operands. These are the operands. So the combination of operators and operands is called as the expression. The expressions can be divided into two types, arithmetic and Boolean. Arithmetic expressions, as the name suggests, are made of variables, constants, and operators, right? For example, A into B minus C, the one that we just saw, or A into B divided by C, etc., are examples of arithmetic expressions. Boolean expression is a combination of constants, variables, logical, and relational operators. For example, x greater than y. So you see here is your variables and you have a relational operator, right? Another example would be x or y, etc. So the reason why they call it Boolean or logical expression is because these can translate to a true or false, right? We learned that Boolean means true or false. So if say x is equal to 7 and y is equal to 9, and I give the expression x greater than y, the answer for this is going to be false, right? And that's why they're called as Boolean expressions. Now we're moving on to the next topic called as typecasting. What is typecasting? It is assigning a value of one data type to a variable of another type, right? Now, there are two kinds of typecasting, implicit and explicit typecasting. In implicit typecasting, what happens is the programming language automatically converts a data from one type to another if needed. For example, you need to convert an int to a float. You have an integer variable and you try to assign it to a float variable, the programming language will automatically convert the integer to float without you having to do anything, right? So you have a data type of a lower size and it is assigned to a data type of a higher size. And this Java automatically does it, right? Now, if you remember, it follows a certain size order. And that size order is as follows. Now, we've already discussed what the size of each of these are in the previous video. You can go check that out, right? But this is the order that it follows from lower data size all the way to the largest data size. Now, an example, let's do an example here. Say I take an example of int num equals 10, right? Now, suppose I want to convert it into double. What I do is I write double, the one I needed to convert, the data type I need num to be converted to, and I give another name, say p, equals num, right? So what happens here is Java implicitly converts int to double, right? Now, b is going to be a double. Now, the other type of typecasting is called as explicit typecasting. Explicit typecasting occurs when the programmer explicitly converts a value from one data type to another, right? In this type, you have to specify the desired data type conversion. Now, say I'm taking a data type of a higher size and trying to convert it to a data type or narrow it down to a data type of a lower size. This won't be done automatically or implicitly by Java's compiler. It has to be done forcefully by the programmer. Now let's look at an example. Say I take double num equals 10, right? Now if I have to convert double to int, I write int, another variable p, is equal to int num. Now you see the difference in the syntax between both of them, right? So over here, we wrote int num equal 10, and then when we converting the double, we just wrote double, your variable name, and then you gave this variable right here. So it just directly converted this num value, that is 10, to the form of a double. But in the case of explicit typecasting, we said double, right? We gave it as double num equals 10. And then when we tried converting to int, right, we had to specify the data type so that it would convert properly, because Java implicitly will not convert it. We have to explicitly mention the data type that we need to convert it into. Okay, now let's write down the syntax for both of them. We've already looked at it, but we can just write that down one last time. So implicit is simple. So you have data type 1. I'm going to name this as data type 1 as the first data type. Variable name equals value, right? And then data type 2, variable name again, equals, I'm going to name this as variable name 2, okay? Variable name 1. This is variable name 1. Okay, so you have to remember in this case, data type 1 is going to be smaller than data type 2. Okay, in the case of explicit typecasting, we have data type 1, variable name 1 equals value, and then data type 2, variable name 2 equals. Then you put data type 2 in the bracket, and then you give out your variable name So you can see the difference in the format for both of them, and that is the syntax that you need to remember for implicit and explicit typecasting.